Okay, my name is Steve Turton. I'm with Central Queensland University in Australia, which is up in Queensland. Well, the ATBC has become very focused on conservation issues, particularly over the last 10 years or so. And it's driven mostly by the fact that we do some wonderful science, but we don't always communicate that science so that it gets out into the policy environment, where governments can use that science to underpin how they might want to manage biodiversity, for example, or protected area management, or even managing conservation within the broader landscape, which might include agriculture or even urbanisation. So I think that's the main role of, well, one of the important roles is communicating science so that policymakers can develop new laws to protect the biodiversity that we have on this planet. It is a huge challenge, and it's not, for some scientists it's just not their thing. They prefer just to focus on biology, which is fine. And ATBC, we are, to use this term, we're a very broad church. We have a very broad membership from people who study, cellular level, molecular level, right through to organisms and whole ecosystems. So within ATBC, we do have a lot of very active members who really want to see their research make a difference on the ground, so out there actually in the landscape or the seascape, so that we're managing our biodiversity in a way that's sustainable for future generations. I've been a member, I think I joined in 2006, so I'm certainly not a long-term member, because ATBC is now over 50 years old. So I don't think we probably do have a few people who've been members for perhaps many decades. But so for me, it's 2006, and I became interested, particularly after they established the Asia-Pacific chapter in 2006, and then I went to the very first meeting of the chapter in India in 2007. Well, the tropics has probably 80% of the world's biodiversity. The tropics is an area where there's rapid social change and economic change. The population, probably by 2050, half the world's population is going to be living in the tropics. So we're seeing very rapid growth of human population. That's putting a lot of pressure on our biodiversity mainly because of development, demand for agriculture, clearing of rainforests, say to grow oil palm or other kinds of food production, is really taking a huge toll on some of the world's most important species, very charismatic species, like orangutans, for example, in Southeast Asia. Their habitat is being cleared very quickly for oil palm, and this is leading to their decline in their numbers in the ecosystem. I think scientists can make a difference, and I think there are some examples where the ATBC has had some very successful outcomes from the declarations that come out with every meeting, and the resolutions that come out as well as part of the meeting and between the meetings, where there have been improvements in activities on the ground. There are also cases where things haven't worked out, and I guess we get good and bad that come with this. But if we don't make an effort to try and make a real difference, then things won't change. So we also feel that it has to come from within the countries that we're working with. So it's important that there's a bottom-up approach to conservation. So local communities, could be Indigenous communities, it could be rural communities, or people who live out in the countryside or even in the urban areas, they need to get involved in conservation so that it's driven within the countries where we're seeing biodiversity loss in particular. I went to the first meeting in India of the chapter, and I think there was only about 100 people there, maybe less than 100. So we only needed a very small space, and we only had 2 concurrent sessions at that meeting. And about half of our membership of the chapter is made up of students. So a very important thing that we try to do in the ATBC generally is to make sure we've got a large student cohort within the ATBC family or community, because they are the next generation of scientists who will be going out hopefully to save the biodiversity that we've saved from the current generation. So that very first meeting had only perhaps less than 100 people. Our most recent meeting, the second to last meeting was in Singapore, had close to 600 people. So we are really growing very well in the Asia Pacific, which is a good thing to see.